Today we went to Diwa Street, which is a famous street in Taipei that has buildings dating back to the 19th and 20th centuries. Back then it was a thriving commercial center, and it's still a significant tourist attraction today because of the many influences from different periods of time. It has architecture that takes inspiration from both traditional Chinese and also some Japanese architectural elements. And today it's famous for the food, so you can try food just in the street like we're doing. And then there's also some restaurants in the historical buildings that you can try as well. We picked this restaurant because it was featured in a show called Samurai Gourmet. You may have seen it in Netflix around 2017. You can see the atmosphere in the street is pretty relaxing with just a bunch of pedestrians walking around. They're pretty tiny streets, so most vehicles were just scooters that are pretty much ubiquitous in Taipei. Apparently the building to the right is a famous textile market and it's still active today. There's also random cafes and restaurants on the side streets, and it's worth having a look if you have some more time to explore the area. Diwa Street also has a few interesting stalls, so if you're looking for food or perhaps for traditional medicine, it seems to have a lot of these places. Unfortunately, we didn't stay too long in Diwa Street since we had to catch a bike ride. We actually planned to cycle by the river in Taipei, and here's our next stop here. We're by the river. There's a Giant store. If you don't know, Giant is a large bicycle manufacturer and it's based out of Taiwan. I was thinking about renting bikes from there, but it ended up being a bit more expensive. If you go by the park here, there's actually a bike rental place. The area we're walking through is known as Chang Pier Plaza. It's closed right now, but we'll come back later in the video and you'll see it really comes alive at night. So there's a lot of these street vendors just opening in this video, and then you can grab a snack here and watch the river. So here's the bike rental place. It's known as the Taipei Riverside Bike Rental Station. There's actually quite a lot of biking or cycling infrastructure by the river in Taipei. There's a few of these parks or piers where you can rent a bicycle. This is the closest one that I found to Ximending, so it's a good starting off point. And you can either go north or south along the river and see more of Taipei. Now, if you're picky, I might recommend going to a Giant store. They probably have better quality bikes, but we aren't that picky, and we were just looking for a leisurely ride. So they had a selection of both kind of city bikes and then a few mountain bikes to choose from. I found one my size pretty easily. But I'd say if you're picky or if you are, you know, just looking for a nicer bike, I'd go with Giant. They probably have a larger selection of road bikes and then also some nicer city bikes as well. So you can see the path here. It has a double yellow line to separate the traffic, but it's only a single lane, so it's a little bit hard to pass somebody. Let's say if somebody is going slow, we had to pass quite a few people, and that means you have to veer into the other lane. To the credit of the path though, it does widen, as you can see here. You can kind of ride to a side on some of these parts, but it does tend to get a little narrow further down. And here we found a clearing and decided to try out the drone here. So this view should be looking both to the north and to the west of Taipei, and now the drone is flying towards the south. So you can kind of get a picture of what this area looks like. This is definitely in the central area of Taipei, and that's why you can see so many buildings. I found the view beautiful just looking at the viewfinder on the drone, and then it looks even better on the video. When I was living in Japan, I actually lived by a river, and I found some similarities in how the river areas were set up. So there's, if you might have seen a baseball diamond that was on the river path, that's pretty similar to where I lived in Japan as well. And then there was also a small path, although I'd say Taipei's cycling infrastructure is leagues ahead in terms of what I've seen in most other countries. You can see just how well developed it is across the river. And what's interesting is they also have dedicated motorcycle lanes as well. So at this point we are about halfway through Taipei, and you could see Taipei 101 in the distance since we were closing in on the Xinyi district. It's a really nice path, but we were running out of time and we had to return our bikes. We only had them for around 2 hours and we weren't sure we were going to make it back if we went any further, so we decided to turn around here. So after returning our bikes, we went back to the Chang Pier Plaza, and it has this pier here that you can see the river view from, and then also the street vendors had opened up by this time. This area is pretty cool since there's so many different types of choices. I'd say it's more like catering to food truck style food, so a lot of fusion, a lot of different countries' cuisines rather than just Taiwanese cuisines. So if you're interested in kind of a more hip area with different choices, this is a good place to go. If you do end up going during the fall to this place, I'll say that it gets really cold at night, so you may want to dress more warmly than my friend here. Somehow he's impervious to the cold, but if you feel cold like normal people, you'll see most people are in some kind of jacket. It definitely gets colder near the river. So after hanging out there for a bit, we decided to go to this Carrefour. We went to a Carrefour earlier in the trip, but that was more of a convenience store. This is a giant Carrefour. It's more like a Walmart or even maybe closer to almost a Costco in the US. On the main floor, it has a grocery store and it's pretty extensive. It has food not just from Taiwan, but also international food. We are having fun comparing the different prices. When we visited the US earlier this year, we were comparing the prices to Singapore and how different things were either more or less expensive. What we noticed were things in Taipei were a lot cheaper than the equivalent back home, and then things that were imported, like appliances, would be pretty expensive, on par if not more expensive. After that, we went up to the first floor where they have restaurants and went to the sushi place. So you can see it's a kaiten sushi or a sushi with the conveyor belt, so it brings you different platters that you can choose from. If you've been to Japan, it's pretty similar to kaiten sushi there, although there were a few Taiwan-only dishes. Overall, with sushi, you have a choice how expensive you want it to be. If you get some of the cheaper choices, that'll definitely fill you up. But if you get some of the more expensive types of fish, you'll get a smaller portion for the same amount of money. For our last stop of the day, we checked out a tea braised egg, which our friend was talking about this whole trip. It's available in various convenience stores. We also got a street snack, and unfortunately I don't have the footage here, but we had it along with the tea braised egg. So this ends the 4th day of our trip. If you want to see the last day of our trip, we'll be in the Shinyi district and it should be out soon.